Oh, Lord. In that little community, probably about 200 or 300. Yes, in that particular community. I mean, the town is kind of like spread out, but the church is being such a light to that community that the children just want to keep on coming and they want to be, with the people, the other children, and then they start spreading the word how an amazing time they have there, and the meals and the shoe boxes, which we were able to get them some shoe boxes last year, and the church has been just so active in the community that they are people. They are changing lives, literally. They really are. So, this is Pastor Rick Walker trip to Ecuador. This past August the 26th through September the 4th, and he did. Oh my gosh, he did so many different things. I really don't, when I looked at everything he did, I really don't know logistically how he had the time to accomplish everything he accomplished. I can only say God was helping him and keeping him on track on that itinerary. So they delivered 65 bags of love, which is just basically meals, or I'm not meals, I'm sorry, but food that they went and bought in bulk in a town close by, and they just buy like 100 pounds of rice and they split it into little bags and they deliver them. So, and they delivered them to this community and the people there. So there they are. He went with a friend of his name is Jeff Smith, and I'm sure he had a great time also seeing the needs in Ecuador. Well, he had a good time overall, but I'm sure he was touched by the needs. That's what I meant. This is a Norwood small group. If you are not part of a small group, I invite you to come to our small group, which is not very small anymore, is it, Donna, Sarah? We were, the whole Project Ecuador thing started off because a small group of friends got together and they started praying. And when I came back about the roof back in 2013, 2014, I said, guys, I just feel like we can help raise some money for the roof. And they said, okay, well, let's do it. I said, really? So Betty O'Neill, Joy and Barry Page, and Dawn and Keith and Sarah, and please forgive me, I leave so many people out, Carol and Larry Emmerich, Maloney, the Maloneys, and they also were so supportive, and we just started throwing dinner parties in different homes, and we just raised $5,000 for the roof back in 2014. So this group has been very, very supportive of the Ecuador project. So we took a picture of the whole group and we sent to the people down there, and they had said they're going to put it in a big frame and put it in the center of the church. So, but next time I will really like to take a picture, Pastor, with all the people here, even if it's just the congregation that we have here on Sundays, and just take a picture of the whole people, and maybe that we can send it as well, because I know that's how it started, but I know you guys all here have been part of this as well. So I just wanted to show you that the lady in the middle is a pastor. She's there part-time, but the lady with a red shirt is kind of like the leader of the church in there, because the pastor is not there full-time, and she has been a very active in the community, in the church as well. So the next slide shows the baptism in the ocean that they had this year. She gathered all different churches that she pastors and did one big baptism in the Pacific Ocean. So that was my playground. Y'all, aren't you jealous? That was literally my playground, which was right behind my house. That's when I'm gone some weekends, Pastor, because I miss the beach, so we go to the beach a lot because I really enjoy. That's where I grew up. So they have the baptism there for all these different churches. How many people were baptized, Pastor Rick? 9 people. Okay, so nine people were baptized, and then the next thing they did. Oh my gosh, and this is so close to my heart, because I was telling you earlier, I didn't grow up with shoes, or wearing a new pair of shoes every now and then. My mom would probably buy us a pair of shoes once a year, maybe. I mean, it was really, really an exciting time when we get a new pair of shoes, and that didn't happen very often. So these children have, Pastor Rick bought 50 pairs of shoes for these children, and I know, and he was telling me, he said, and you should see the face, because we only had 50, But remember, there are like at least 90, 100 children around where you cannot buy for all of them because, I mean, sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. So they bought 50 pairs of shoes and they went to the mall. And then, the children were very, very excited to have a new pair of shoes. So I can just see their faces and rejoice because of, I'm sure, the happiness that brought to them and to the families and to their parents. So then the next day, they went to the Amazon, and that's how they traveled by bus. And the the ride was rough because you just travel in those. The main road, you go in those big buses, but once you get off the main road and you go into these little communities, it's like about how wide that is. I mean, you can barely drive through there with a truck. And honestly, if you have another truck coming in the other direction, which is very rare, by the way, because they don't have many private transportation means, but it will be impossible for two cars to go on the same road. So that's the community where they went to, which is in Macas, about 8 hours away from Guayaquil, the main city. And it's a Shuar community, and it's amazing what God is doing there as well. So there they are, and those are the children they visited, and that's the town is Huamboya is a other small town. And then after that, there's like communities in different communities. So how many communities did you visit? 5 different communities. Last year when we went, we only saw this one community, and I fell in love with the children. They are so sweet and so needy. So the next slide shows Pastor Rick also had some tracts that he took with him, and he had somebody translating those tracts in Shuar language. Most of the children speak Spanish and Shuar, but then others, especially the adults, wouldn't speak any Spanish. They just speak Shuar. So it was very important for them to have to hand a tract in a language they can understand. And here are the children reading the tracts, and that was awesome. And it was just, I can just see their faces. And last year we took what is called an EvangeCube, and it was like the gospel presented in a cube shape. And as they were kind of opening it up and unfolding it, it was just amazing to see how excited they were. But then when they really saw the message behind that cube, their faces, it was just priceless to see that. But then the other. I loved this picture. I absolutely love this picture. So I just said, did you wonder what is she looking up to? I mean, that picture just speaks thousands of words, and she's just, while the others are reading, she's just looking up and say, I don't know. Can you just imagine what goes through her mind right now? It's just all comes to, I don't know, if her faith or her spirit is just lifting up to God and say, thank you, Jesus. Or, I don't know. It's amazing to see what God is doing. And here's the Bibles that we bought last year, and we sent 50 Bibles, right? And that's what Pastor George is the one you see there, right there on the left. He's holding the Bibles, and the children on the other side are holding the Bibles. Those were the Bibles we sent last year, and so they're using those Bibles. The odd thing is, though, that it's so humid down there that the Bibles, they pretty much come apart because it's so humid and wet that they can't, they disintegrate because of the humidity. And so they have to, continuously be reading. Sometimes they're missing pages in the Bible because they just can't keep them in a temperate or the right temperate. Okay, so the next part is the church service in the Amazon, and that Pastor Rick went, and then the next slide will be, so this is Pastor Rick's presentation, but then I will let him share what he has to share. Some of the things he's going to share, I'll let him talk about it. But this is pretty much what it is, what it's going to be. Continue to pray for Ecuador and for a big revival. That little girl, Gabrielle, that came, I've been in contact with her, by the way. She's been asking me questions, and we're friends on Facebook, and she's headed to Ecuador. She's going to learn the language first. So she's a great answer prayer because she's going to be a missionary in Ecuador. Pray for the missionaries already there. Pray for actually people that can go to Bible school that are from Ecuador, that they can go to administer to other communities or other cities in the country. And Pastor Rick is going October the 6th, and his goal is to pack 400 book bags to take to the Amazon and to buy, I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, 100 book bags and school supplies for the Amazon. And because in the Amazon, they're going to start classes in mid-October. And he's also going to bring at least 50, if not 100 pairs of shoes to the Amazon, right? I saw this little girl when she was walking in the Amazon last year, and her flip-flops will come apart because they were tore, and she couldn't even walk. I mean, she would be holding my hand and running, and the flip-flop was behind her because it was. And I told Pastor Rick last time, I said, well, please make sure that girl gets them. So I gave him some money so he can buy some shoes for that precious little girl, because I could see her being me when I was her age. You know, I like I told you earlier, it was hard for my mom to buy us. She had to decide to buy either food or shoes or buy clothes or buy school supplies. And the school supplies are a big burden down there as well. They're going to start classes, and let me share this testimony. For some reason, I always remember this. Children, to have one pencil, they treasure that pencil. They treasured it. I'm talking literally, like they take good care of that single pencil, because they can get in real deep trouble if they lose that pen or that pencil. I remember this, and it was on the news when I was young, about probably 15, 20 years old. And it was on the news that this father had beat his son with an electric wire and make scars on him for losing a pen. Because buying school supplies could be very expensive down there, especially when you have to decide whether to buy food or school supplies. The choice will be obvious, and if the children lose their school supplies, it's going to be a real burden on the family to be able to afford and to buy another one. So Pastor Rick has in his heart to deliver 100 book bags with school supplies. $40, about $40 for each school, for each book bag, and 50 or maybe 100. It just depends. He has a spaghetti supper next Saturday, and so he's going on October the 6th to down to Ecuador as well. So I really thank him for his obedience, for his heart. When I mentioned Ecuador to him, like his eyes came like that big. He said, I've been praying for this for a long time. And he absolutely fell in love with the people in Ecuador. And they love him. They love him. They love him. They really look forward to having him. And he's talking about the Reverend James Potts Memorial Fund. Has anybody heard about Reverend Potts? He was going to Ecuador. Unfortunately, he passed away on September the 4th. So, but his family is still going, according to Pastor Rick. And I'll let him share that part of what he has next. So, Pastor Rick, let's give him a hand. So, thank you for your attention.
Thank you. I want to thank Elsa for inviting me to go to Ecuador. I've had the opportunity, thank God, to visit 40 countries I've been doing this for 40 years. It's hard to believe. But I wanted to thank Elsa and Tim. I had always wanted to go to South America, but I never had any contacts. And I'm walking out in the hallway. She doesn't know this. And I'd been praying. I said, God, I'd really like to go to South America, but I don't know anybody. I'm just praying. And this little beautiful lady touched me. She said, aren't you a missionary? And I said, yeah. She says, how would you like to go to Ecuador? And that's why my eyes lit up. I said it was an answer to prayer. So thank you for letting me go. Some people have asked me, why do you keep going back to Ecuador? Well, most of you anybody like fishing? Okay, 3. All right. When you fish, if they're not biting, you go, and then when you find your honey hole, if they're really biting, that's where you keep going back. Something is happening in a supernatural way in Ecuador. That little pink church is sitting right in the center of this community, and it's like a launching pad of salvation. people coming to, it's unreal. And just, you can sense the presence of God. That's why I like going back there. And now they've wanted to, that other town that I can't pronounce, we went to that, and we walked around that place praying, and I was saying, God, start a church here, start a church here. And so they were just so happy. They are becoming evangelistic, reaching out to their community. I know the time is short. I could go on for a long, long time and tell you, but I won't, I promise. You heard her say something about Pastor James Potts. He pastored a little Baptist church over here, and he's heard me talk before, and he had been crushed by a big logging skidder and had to learn how to walk again. He had a brace on his leg, and in 2015, he said, I would like to go on a missions trip with you. And I'm looking at him, you know, and his health. He's 75 years old at the time. And I said, okay, I'll take you to El Salvador. So we went to Guatemala and El Salvador, and he did great. And I thought then, if he could do that, I hadn't been to Ecuador yet. So when I went to Ecuador and came back and told him about the Amazon, he said, I want to go. And I'm going, man, I don't know if you can make Ecuador now. But he just kept on, had a pacemaker put in, believe it or not. And so he, his wife, and his daughter all wanted to go. So I said, okay, we'll go if your doctor gives you a clean bill of health. Put the pacemaker in, doing great. Doctor said he can go anywhere. I said, all right, we're going to go. So when I left on August 24th, I said, Pastor Potts, I'm coming back. I'm going to show you the pictures, tell you everything. We're going to go down and do the same thing when we go in October. I got home early on September the 4th, early in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't bother him because it's Sunday, and you know how pastors are. They're busy and stuff. I said, I'll call him Monday morning. About 9 o'clock that night, they said Pastor Potts had died. I had never seen someone so excited about going on a trip. And I'm sitting there thinking, God, why did you take him? Why? You know, well, God knows what he's doing. For reasons yet unknown, he's in glory, and we have to rejoice in that. Then there was his crushed wife and daughter. They had to bury her husband, and his daughter had to celebrate her birthday on the day that they buried him. You know, so they're just talking about heartbroken people. And so I didn't push the issue. I thought, well, if they want to go, you know, I fully expect them to cancel. A couple of days passed. They said, Brother Rick, we still want to go and honor him. We want to go and do something for God. I said, okay. So we're still on go. While we were there in the Amazon, we were talking with Pastor Jorge, you know, what are some of the needs? And of course, we could not meet all of the needs. It's just so overwhelming. You do not know how blessed you are living in this country with all of its problems. You do not know how blessed you are. And so here we are sitting with these kids, and I'm looking at all of the bare feet and thinking how just the dynamics of having to go. You have to go so far to get a pair of shoes, and then you wonder if you have the right size. We just couldn't do it that trip. So I'm thinking, here we're coming back in October. And so I asked Pastor Jorge, what are one of the biggest needs for the kids? He says, school supplies. Well, I'm sitting there thinking, you know, pencils, quadernos, notebooks, whatever. And he says, well, backpacks too, because it rains, you know, everything gets wet. And so I said, okay. You know each one of these churches. You know the kids that are school age. And there were a lot of them that I saw. I said, why are these kids not in school? He said, they don't have the school supplies to go. He said, it's government school, so they have to have uniforms. And he said, I said, what does it cost for uniforms? And he said, maybe $20. He said, the families might be able to afford one, but they can't afford the other, so they don't do either. And so I started thinking, I said, how many kids do you have? In this group. We went to 5. And he came up with the number. He said, if we had 95, he said, those are the kids that I actually know myself. I know there's 95 kids. I said, all right, what if we did 100? He said, that'd be fantastic. So he has already gotten the names of the children. Do they need a small backpack or a grande, a big one? A list of all the school supplies. $40. We'll buy the backpack and fill it. And I said, how many do you need? And he told me 95. I said, let's shoot for 100. And so I'm starting thinking, man, that's $4,000. I said, I don't have $4,000. But now they're all excited and they're expecting 100 backpacks. I said, God, this is you. I said, I'm just a funnel. I said, you bring it and I'll send it and we'll get it. And so we're doing a spaghetti fundraiser in BRS in Richfield. Anybody know where that is? It's on Highway 49. You're welcome to come. 5:30 to 7:30, we're having a spaghetti fundraiser. No, $8 a plate. $8 a plate. $40. $40. All right, the pastor said it. So $40 a plate. Well, in my brain, I'm sitting there thinking, if 100 people could give $40, just 100 people give $40, we could do that. And so I said, God, nothing's too big for you. You can do all things. And as you preach, you know, God's riches and, you know, he's going to supply all your needs. I'm sitting back there soaking it up this morning. And I'm saying, God, and Stacy, what you were saying this morning, I mean, this evening, I said, that's for me. He can do anything. He hadn't forgotten. You know, God has blessed us, and the fish are biting down there in Ecuador, and I want to throw some bait out. And I promise I'm not going to keep you long. We showed the tracts about the guy translating the Spanish tracts into Shuar. They don't have many things in the Shuar language, so I'm taking 2 different tracts. We've already got them translated into Shuar. Now we have to put them together. We're even having, what do you call it? Laminated, so when it rains, it won't disintegrate. And the kids can take it to the parents, and the parents can read something in their own language. Now, this is something else, my own little project that I'm wanting to do. They don't have Shuar Bibles. That you can only get the New Testament in Shuar, but it's online. And that doesn't help the people in the Amazon, you know. So I downloaded, it's a work in progress. I have downloaded the entire Shuar New Testament. I'm putting it into a book. I'm going to have it put into, of course, I didn't know this till after I downloaded it. The Shuar New Testament is 1,000 pages. So I'm still going to do it. I'm going to have it hardbound, and I want to give 1 copy to each one of those communities. I'm going to have 10 made. And then, why you say 10? Well, there's other communities we haven't gotten to. So they will be able to, in their church, read the New Testament in their own native tongue. For the first time ever in history. So that's one of the things we want to do. 10 New Testaments in the Shuar are going to be about $578. I'm willing to cover that myself. But if you could just help in any way with the backpacks. Now, that's the Amazon. We're already looking ahead because one of the pastors from Chandui went with us to the Amazon, and she's seeing this, and she said, well, what about the Chandui kids? I said, okay. When does their school start? She said, their school starts in April. And I said, okay, how many kids need a backpack and school supplies there? And she's just calculating, blah, 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 blah. 200. I said, okay. How much each? She said, $40. I'm sitting there in my limited math. That's $8,000. I said, okay, God. I said, I'm trusting you, and you preached it this morning. Do what you can do, and God will do what you can't do. Well, I can calculate how many need it and all of this and say, okay, God. So I'm going to do what I can do and just be a funnel and let it go right to there, because I'm telling you, the blessing. It just is overwhelming. The other thing about what we don't understand, why is going to school so important? Well, you know what education does as opposed to someone who does not have education. in that culture, Latin American culture, and some in South America, the gangs rule. If your child doesn't go to school, the gangs get them. In Central America, they get the kids who don't go to school, and they can get the kids to commit murder for the gang because the laws don't prosecute the children. So if you can get them into school, the gangs can't get to them. Hallelujah. So that was one of our main things, was to educate these kids to get them out of the cycle of poverty, because if they're never educated, they're just doomed to repeat that same cycle. Now, the one other thing that we're going to put in the backpack is either a Spanish Bible or Schwar New Testaments, or both. So they're going to get the gospel, they're going to get school supplies, and a wonderful blessing. So that is on my heart. I would ask that you pray. And this is my little 30-second sermon for you, and I'm done. No, I've got to tell you about my health. In missions, there are goers, there's prayers, and there's payers. The reason one person can't do it all is God wants to spread the blessing around. You heard the guy this morning talking about you can't outgive God, and how you give, he blesses you back. When we stand before God one of these days in heaven, and he says, you could have done this, why didn't you? I don't want to look at my Lord who gave all and look at me who I could have done, as Pastor Bob said, you do what you can do, and tell him I just didn't do it. I want to do it. I want to hear him say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And those who go are going to be blessed. Those who pray, you receive part of that blessing too. The prayers, I could go on and on about people who have prayed for me when I was out in danger. It was their prayers, and I couldn't have made it without them. Equally, those who gave. I couldn't have done it without them. Somebody had given me an extra $500, and I had it poked in my pocket for emergencies. Because you never know. We were in this little, it'll break your heart. I don't want to call it a house. It was a bamboo walls, dirt floor, bamboo ceiling, mosquitoes just flying through it. In the little thing, we were sitting there putting shoes on kids, and I'm sitting there with a parrot on my finger. I don't know if y'all caught that or not, but I had a parrot sitting on my finger. And I said, where else but in Ecuador can you be sitting in a chair with a parrot on your finger and seeing brand new shoes put on feet that had never had a pair of shoes? I mean, I was blessed. I was blessed. But I was there because people were praying and people were giving. They looked, and the people, it was Mauder and Listinia, they're looking, they said, Pastor, look. They have two beds. The mother and the father and the baby slept on one, and 6 kids were in the other one. And it wasn't like a full, you know how big a full bed is, whatever. That's what 6 kids were sleeping on. So we start thinking, and I'm not talking about a brand new Serta comfort mattress. I mean, this thing looked like it had been run over by a truck. It was, pigs had been on it. It was awful. They said, could we not buy a mattress, a bigger mattress for these kids? Well, I'm starting to think, what about a bunk bed? Have 3 and 3. Well, lo and behold, here we go. And we find everything starts closing early. So there was a store that was open. And there was this big bunk bed right on the front. I said, there it is. It had like a full size on top and a queen on the bottom. I mean, it was awesome. I wanted to get in it. And so I let the ladies dicker. They can do it better than anybody. And they came up, and I'm thinking that bed's going to be $600. And they said, oh, Pastor, you won't believe it. It's $475. And I said, okay, ask how much they would deliver it and put it up. because, man, it was late. I didn't want to put a bed up, to be honest. And they came back and said, oh, $50. I said, you go back and tell them, $500, deliver it, set it up, it's a done deal, cash. Oh, yeah, we can do that. So here we go, back out to the Parrot, sitting on my finger again, watching the people put the bed up. And those kids, they 3 on the big queen size, and then 3 up top. They were as happy as could be. Oh, it was awesome. But because somebody gave, I had it to do. So you got to pray, you got to pay, and you got to go. Now let me quickly, and I promise is it 7:30? Last year, and I'm talking about prayers now. Last year, I had planned to go to live in Ecuador. I sold a lot of everything I had. Didn't have much, but I got rid of it. Had my banking set up with my sister, everything. We did a little fundraiser at BRS before I left to raise some extra money for the kids down there. And I wasn't feeling the best, and then I was leaving on Friday. I wasn't feeling good. By the time I got to Miami, I was sick. I mean, I just did not feel good. I was afraid they weren't going to let me on the plane. And so Elsa was right. It was not from eating Ecuadorian food. So by the time I landed in Guayaquil, I could hardly go. I mean, I looked like a preacher after Sunday morning. You've just spent from preaching. And they said, what is wrong with you? I said, I don't know. I said, I just don't feel good. So the pastors, they took me to this place. I fell in bed, and they said, oh, we've got to go to church. So I had to get up. We went to church, and they wanted me to preach. So I preached, went back. I was not feeling well at all. Monday, they said, oh, we got to go get your visa stamped in your passport since you're going to be living here. So I took all of my paperwork, went down, and they looked at it. They said, you're missing 2 things, so you cannot stay. Talk about making you sick. But I just was not feeling well, so I went back to the pastor's house. I asked the guy, what do I have to do? He said, you have to leave within 7 days, since now we know you don't have all your paperwork. If I hadn't have done it, I could have stayed for 90 days. Didn't know that at the time. So I'm not feeling well. They had taken me to this doctor, which actually it was just his garage. And he put on a white coat, came, checked my blood pressure. And you know when you get sick, everybody's a doctor. Yeah. They tell you what to do. And so he gave me aspirin. And so I took the aspirin, went back, and I mean, I am sick. I had started turning yellow. My eyes were yellow. I was just, it was bad. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And so I'm lying in bed, and then here they come in with this mug of stuff. It's steaming. They said, here, drink this. It looked like STP. And so I start drinking this stuff, and I'm trying to get it down. It's like honey, and I was just trying to get it down. Finally, I said, what is this? They said, oh, we don't know. Said it comes from a plant out here. And I look, and there's a dog urinating on the plant. And I'm going. So anyway, I really wasn't getting well. And one of the people I was with, they were had gotten online. They said, do you want to email anybody? Well, man, I couldn't sit up long enough to email anybody. And I remembered there was a friend of mine who lived in Peru. I couldn't make a flight all the way back to the States. I just couldn't. And so I emailed my friends in Peru, and I said, I've got to leave Ecuador. I don't have anywhere to go. They said, come stay with us. And I emailed back, but you got to understand, I'm sick. They said, we have a wellness center. You can come here. We'll take care of you. So I made the hour and 15-minute flight, and I mean, I was really dragging when I got off. And they had a taxi pick me up. You know, you feel important when you go out, and there's this guy, little Peruvian guy standing there with a sign that says Rick Walker. You know, so I made it. And I collapsed in his taxi, passed out all the way to Cusco. When I got there, I stayed in bed for 3 days. I didn't do anything but drink water. They finally called a physician in, and he starts pressing and doing. He says, I think you have something wrong with your liver. And it really concerned me because it was about the same time Sister Shar had died. And so, I mean, you know, you have all of these thoughts going through your mind. And here I am. God, what are you doing? You send me. I knew you had called me to Ecuador. I'm down here in Ecuador. Nobody knows me. I can hardly tell them how I feel other than my stomach hurts. My head hurts. And what are you doing? So the doctor, he starts working with me. I couldn't eat dairy. I had to drink water, dandelion tea, and eat salads. That's all I did for 3 weeks. And then finally, and I don't want to be too graphic or keep you too long, they did a liver flush on me. And the doctor told me, he said, had you not come here and started this, he said, you would probably have been dead in 2 weeks. I had so many liver stones. Have you ever heard of a liver stone? I've heard of kidney stones, gallstones, liver stones. So, and I'm not going to tell you this so you go home and try this. Do not try this at home. He said, I said, what do you do for liver stones? He said, well, if you were in the U.S., said they'd probably cut you open and take them out. He said, we're going to try it the natural way. I had to drink 750 milliliters of olive oil within 30 minutes. Oh, yes. So I would drink a little bit, and he said, chase it with lemon juice. I did it, and I said, what now? He says, you just wait. And so I said, what do I do? He brought a bucket. Now, y'all want to be a missionary? Oh, yeah, I'm telling you the raw facts. Here's the bucket. He says, you will know what to do. I said, how long do I have to wait? He said, I have never had a patient last more than 4 hours. I said, okay, it's 8 o'clock at night. Midnight is going to be the midnight cry. Midnight came, nothing. 1 o'clock, nothing. 2 o'clock, nothing. I said, man, this doctor doesn't know anything. But 4 o'clock in the morning, oh, boy. Oh, boy. That bucket, bless that bucket. I'm not going to get into details. But anyway, the doctor came the next morning, he says, let's see your bucket. So we took it out and poured it over some screen, and there they were. About 100 stones. I couldn't believe it. But one was the size of my fist. He said, that was your problem. He said, evidently those stones had rolled over your bile ducts and you were becoming auto-intoxicated with all this bile. I felt like I'd had a baby. And so bless you women. Whew. And so, I mean, I was still weak. I couldn't walk. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to look at anything. I had to keep drinking dandelion tea, which is great stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking, God, what are you doing? I'm down here. I can't do missions. I'm sick. What are you doing? And I remember looking out, and on the side of the hill, somebody at some time, and I think just for me, had carved into the vegetation big letters. That one letter was C, then G-O-D. See God. So every morning I would get up and I would look at that, and I think it was a testing of my faith. Do I really trust God when it looks like everything has turned the wrong way? Am I still going to trust Him? We just sang that song. How does it go? He doesn't forget me. Say it. Yeah, He's for me. He's for me. I had to get, yeah, there you go. I know that you are for me. I had to get to that place in faith, even though I was sick, that I could sing that from my heart. There was a time I wanted to not get bitter at God or question God, But it was a crossroads in faith where I had to believe, even at rock bottom, that he was for me. From that, he said I was able to travel back home. I came back home. I stayed in my sister's house. I stayed in bed for 3 more months. I couldn't hardly do anything. It wasn't in my heart to do. I just had to get better. And so about January, February, I started getting out more. And I think it was March I started coming back. I moved back to Albemarle, and I started coming back. I couldn't make every Sunday, but when I could, I could. And so now God's kind of regenerated me, given me a new breath, and my heart was still burning for Ecuador. There was something more still to do. And that's why I went back in August, and I'm going back in October. So keep praying, keep praying. Don't give up on God. And maybe, just maybe, God's calling you to go in March when we go back to the coast with 200 backpacks. We need your help. So, Brother Bob, I'm finished, so you come on.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.